And welcome to this
Recording in progress.
special meeting of the Board of Directors of the Midpeninsula Regional Open Space District. I'm Zoe Kirstein Tucker, President of the Board of Directors. This meeting is now called to order. It is 6:01 p.m. The meeting is being held in person tonight. Instructions for submitting public comments are available on the meeting agenda. Will you please call the roll?
Director McNiven?
Yes.
Director Kishimoto?
Here.
President Christine Tucker?
Here.
Director Ripple?
Here.
Director Sear?
Yes.
Director Gleason?
Here.
Thank you, and Director Holman is absent.
All right, thank you. We have one item on our special meeting agenda this evening, and that is our legislative position recommendation. Always a great meeting every year. Over to you, Josh.
Okay. Thank you very much. Josh Hugg, Government Affairs Program Manager. So tonight we're going to talk to you about a few bills, and I say a few bills because in prior years we've had a lot more bills to consider. So this, in relative terms, is a short list. But then again, the session is young, so there may be more to come later. Oops. Oh, okay. The recommendation is to approve the recommended list of legislative positions for the 2026 state legislative session. So every year, a host of bills come out for us to consider about all topics under the sun. This year, we saw 1,789 bills released by the bill introduction deadline, February 20th. On February 20th alone, we saw about 1,000 bills released. And so with that list of bills, we sorted through them with the guidance of our legislative program that was ratified earlier this year in January. And then based on that, we brought a subset of those bills to our individual departments, both the department manager and senior subject matter experts in each department, to look at those bills that most aligned with their field of expertise. Oops. And this is a flow chart that I display every year that illustrates what that process looks like. So we have the incoming bills. The bills are time sensitive, so we do an initial assessment. We bring it to the departments. We then bring it to the general manager, and then ultimately bring it to you. If it is particularly time sensitive, there are certain board policies, 1.11, which provides a streamlined ability to take a position and then report back to you, again, under the guidance of the board-adopted legislative program. After we bring these bills to the individual departments, we assign priority numbers to each of them. Some bills are particularly impactful or provide opportunities for the district, and those are assigned priority 1. Those receive the most attention and active advocacy. Priority 2 may be important, but maybe less impactful. There we just weigh in generally with a letter, a position letter, and then if time permits, we could potentially testify on those bills. And then finally, priority 3 is a bit of a catch-all. Those are bills that are either, one, they're in spot form. In other words, the bill was introduced without a substantive language, but may eventually receive that. And bills that may have an intersection with the district, but not in a particularly important manner. And some bills we're just trying to keep an eye on the landscape of the politics of Sacramento and track those as well. So this year we've identified 3 priority 1 bills, 5 priority 2 bills, and 176 priority 3 bills.
Wow.
You never know what's going to happen. So for those oops. I'm staring at my screen thinking you're seeing what I'm seeing. For those 185 bills that we're tracking, the 3 priority 1 bills, 2 are bills that the district is sponsoring. The first is AB 2188. This bill is a follow-on to a bill that was passed in 2015, AB 495, which established the general manager's signature authority for contracts at $50,000. As you know, there was a follow-on bill, AB 2137, Assemblymember Mays, that allowed for a 2% increase every year. And at this point, we're up to, I believe, 53,000. And then with the board's adoption in July, that may go up to 54,000. So this bill would increase that threshold to 150,000. And one thing to underscore here is that sets a ceiling. You will have to then determine where in that range is the appropriate number, but at least the opportunity to consider contracts of 150,000 can be within the realm of possibility. The second bill is SB 949. This bill is a bill that's been talked about amongst the conservation community for many years. We as an agency recognize the importance of the Santa Cruz Mountains, as do many of our counterparts. We've even established the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network that supports active conservation within those mountains. We'd like formal recognition by the state of California for the Santa Cruz Mountains to be considered a landscape of statewide significance. This would direct the California Natural Resources Agency to pay particular attention to stewardship opportunities within the Santa Cruz Mountains. And then ultimately, we'd like to see, with future funding measures, carve-outs within there that would direct funds towards conservation projects within the Santa Cruz Mountains. This is not exclusive to the district. There have been bills in the past, AB 948, which established Coyote Valley as an area of statewide significance. That's directly under the purview of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. And then last year, SB 392 established the East Bay Hills as an area of statewide significance. In Prop 4, there is a $25 million carve-out for conservation within the Coyote Hills. I believe the state budget right now is directing $16 million towards that effort this year. So this would do the same thing, but it would not be exclusive to Midpenn's lands, unlike the other two. And then finally, SB 1250. This is a bill being sponsored by the Nature Conservancy, and this would cause support infrastructure related to wildlife crossings to be added to Caltrans's asset management plan. So I know for our project at Highway 17, there's still an open question as far as who pays for the maintenance. This would answer that question and directly task Caltrans with owning that infrastructure. So as you would expect, that's a highly important to us.
Josh,
yeah.
before you move on,
Sure.
if you're finished with these priority
Yeah.
one bills, I think there might be some questions.
Sure, yes,
Okay.
please.
Director Riffle?
Josh, can you remind us what it means to be a sponsor?
Sure. Well, I guess the first one is we are responsible for the language of the bill. We determine what's in it. And then we actively support the passage of that bill, testifying in committee, assisting with the creation of fact sheets, background material, meeting with stakeholders. In SB 949's case, we are co-sponsoring actually with Semper Virens, the land trust. So we are jointly putting this together, and I wouldn't say we have both of us have exclusive purview because we recognize the broad application of that bill. So we've been meeting with a lot of stakeholders, the RCDs, local tribes, and even the timber industry to make sure that they're comfortable with the language being put forward and making adjustments as needed.
I have another question. How many locations, I think you just said 3, of the landscapes of statewide significance, how many are there in the state?
Currently, there are only 2,
Oh.
Coyote Valley and East Bay Hills.
Oh, really? Wow.
So as you might see with bills like this, it creates, for lack of a better term, a bit of an arms race as far as
Right.
create, and of course, if everyone's special, no one is special.
Right.
But until that day, we're, and it's really fulfilling a long-held desire by the conservation community. So the timing is probably driven by the other 2 bills, but the goal was really established a long time ago.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Well, maybe I have one, which is, the kind of the challenge we face with crossing 17 as well. But it's, so we're interested in wildlife crossings, but also human crossings as well, right? So is there any discussion of kind of combining that as well, so that the highways don't create a...
Yeah. Now, it is a gap. I think everybody's focused on the wildlife. You're right.
Yeah.
So that may require, on our part, a separate discussion. We have not approached the author, Senator Cortese, about lumping that in. I'm not sure how that would play politically, because certainly wildlife are very sympathetic animals, or sympathetic, and doing it for humans, while it makes sense, it may undermine the original effort.
Yeah. So maybe
But
see this first, but keep it in mind for
Yeah,
future.
but that doesn't preclude us from, having those direct conversations with Caltrans and, bringing to bear political pressure from our delegation.
Okay.
As you may know, Senator Cortese chairs the Senate Transportation Committee, so he certainly has some gravitas in that conversation.
Okay, great.
Josh, I have a quick question. Just a clarification. Here on the screen, you mentioned the Santa Cruz Mountains landscape of statewide significance, but then you mentioned Coyote Valley as an area.
Can you speak into your mic
As
a
an
little bit
area.
more, please?
Yes,
Thank you.
sorry about that. Is there a difference between a landscape and an area?
Just purview. The areas are limited to those that are owned by or under control by the authority, by the Open Space Authority and East Bay Hills. They both have conservation plans that that this would assist with, where ours crosses multiple borders. It's a much more collaborative effort.
Okay, thank you. Interesting.
One more question.
Oh, yes, Director Gleason.
Yeah, so that brings up the question of in the other 2 cases, there is a specific owner that's sort of responsible for that area. In our case, I guess the only organization that matches that is the Stewardship Network. But is there any sense of...
Well, the Stewardship Network doesn't own...
Right,
it
does
just
not own.
Manages the convenings and collaborations within those land management agencies.
Right, I guess my question is there a sense of I guess I'm not quite clear about the implications of, in these other cases, there being that one land manager who is actually responsible for that whole unit, right?
Right.
And in our case now, you have many, many land managers and different organizations that are involved. Do you see any? Does that create any difficulties or any confusion?
The designation doesn't, and we have explicit language in there. It does not convey any regulatory weight. It's not going to be used for a land use, changing zoning designations. because there were concerns about this. This is, I guess to put it in the simplest terms, recognizing the special nature of the Santa Cruz Mountains, and as such, we need to take extra care for it. CNRA would be managing that support, and they have numerous strategic plans across their different funding agencies, so I would assume that they would be consistent with those strategic plans, which we support already, through their grant-making process. Is it consistent?
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. If you have any questions about the Priority 2 bills, I'm happy to talk about those as well, but otherwise.
Director Riffle?
Yeah, sorry. I was just, my general question is, Josh, so how can we be of assistance in any of these bills or any of this work?
Well, you've, I think you've already assisted in some of these. I'll just cite one example. Senator Becker, when he was considering this bill, wanted to get the support, secure the support of Supervisor Mueller. Director Kirstine Tucker assisted in that effort. We met at one of his open houses on the coast side and talked to him directly about it and secured his support. So that's one example. As it moves through, there may be opportunities to testify if you're so inclined. We know that we're going to be testifying in front of Senate Natural Resources on March 24th, which coincidentally is the same day that we're doing our advocacy day. These bills are part of that. So one of us is going to have to peel off and actually do the testimony. That may be Director Kirstine Tucker if she so chooses. But as the bills progress, as we continue to interact with stakeholders, we may call on you for additional support.
Okay. Well, speaking as one, I would love the opportunity. So as you see,
Okay, well,
if there's a need, please at least let me know.
the first hearing of AB 2188, the signature authority bill, will be April 15th. So we can certainly follow up afterwards to see if that would be one or just specifically 949, the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Right. Okay, great. So of all of these, the AB 2188 is of high interest. And
Yes.
is there...
And you heard my pitch to Assemblymember Berman previously, how while this is viewed as a very bureaucratic bill, it probably for our agency has the most impact.
Yeah. In fact, I think I told you I had a voicemail exchange with
right.
him.
You
so
did.
Understand.
So you've already contributed.
Well, so much so that he decided not to carry it. But I guess
he's actually co-authoring now.
Oh, okay, good. So I guess my question is on that particular bill, how is that going to proceed through? And is there a way for you or for somebody to say, we might have a problem, or it's on track, it's looking good? Because I really would love to see this get through.
We are in constant conversations with the author's office, and then the fact sheets list us as a sponsor.
Okay.
So they know who to reach out to, or they just reach out to the author who then reaches out to us. There's any number of ways to connect, and that occurred when we first introduced SB 949. It popped onto the radar screen of numerous organizations, and we had numerous conversations and actually made amendments based on that.
Okay. And any expectations on timing? Yeah, I mean, is this something we hope by the end of the fiscal year?
This is the second year of the 2-year legislative session.
Okay.
So I believe the last day is the middle of August, if I recall.
Okay.
And then 30 days after that for the governor to sign. So that would be for the bill to pass or be vetoed, and then it would officially take effect January 1st, 2027.
Okay.
Unless And that's true for most bills unless it has an urgency designation.
Good. Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm wondering if, given that we have some time, would it be your pleasure to hear a little bit more about the priority 2 bills? A little bit more? Yeah?
Well, yeah. Well,
Okay,
I
Josh?
mean, I have.
Oh, you have a
Oh,
question?
I have a
question.
I have a question. Well, maybe it's about the priority. I mean, like this first one that you have listed, the permit streamlining one. Which one is it?
oh, AB
2045.
Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah. Is there a reason why that's not priority 1? Because we have talked about it so
Just
much.
because the Habitat Restoration Enhancement Act, it's actually was originally authored by Assemblymember Rich Gordon at the time, and it's been extended. It just, for our context, it doesn't have as much application, but it does for some of our partners, the RCDs and so forth. So it's moving, the conservation, the ability to do conservation efficiently as a community forward.
Oh, it doesn't have that much application for Midtown?
That's my understanding, because the restrictions are, I believe it applies to 5 acres or less.
Oh, really?
Of land, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or perhaps even 500 linear feet of,
For very small scale ones?
yeah.
Oh. So why not for larger?
There's other efforts to
Okay.
streamline those.
Oh, okay.
It's all part of cutting the green tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hear about the rest of them.
Oh, just,
Just the other 4 priority 2 bills.
oh, okay. Let's see here. Let me work my way down the list. The other 4 bills are fire-related. The first one, AB 1699, actually the next 2 are both prescribed burn-related. So the AB 1699, the Good Fire Act, seeks to equip more or to help to streamline the process of pursuing prescribed burns by certifying and empowering burn bosses. So they are not having to bring their burn plans to CAL FIRE every time. And then there's also the question of liability coverage. Senator Dodd several years ago established a $20 million liability fund, I believe mostly applicable to private burns, and that extends that coverage. The next bill is the Beneficial Fire Capacity Program. This is looking to build local capacity. It does say in the description here that it prioritizes funding for tribes. Of the funding that would be appropriated, at least 25% has to be used for Native American cultural burns. The remainder is applicable to any number of community organizations, including special districts. So this may be something we can benefit from as well, but is also trying to accelerate the pace and scale of trainings to build that local capacity to do burns. The third one, AB 1893, is a Republican bill. There's always a bit of an asterisk there to see how successful they are moving through the legislature. But this one expands the applicability of the Wildfire Prevention Local Assistance Grant Program. It's a CAL FIRE grant program to include helicopter-based dip tanks. I know we've had discussions about putting dip tanks out on the landscape for us. So this would assist in that effort to have that additional potential source of funding. And then finally, Senator Becker had a pilot program to establish a county wildfire coordinator program, and this would make that permanent. And we've already seen versions of this. The Fire Safe Council, certainly the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council has done an amazing job coordinating efforts. Many of their efforts we participate in. So this would bring additional support to their coordinating efforts. So those are the other remaining bills.
All right, thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I know the the LAFPAC committee met in, I believe, December to look at these, and that was Director McNiven, Director Holman, and the chair was Director Gleason. I'm wondering if you might have some comments.
Yeah, I would say we were, in general, we were very supportive, and we felt that this was very consistent with what we had discussed before. For example, the GM signature authority has been discussed multiple times. I think the whole board has been very supportive of that, and of course the wildlife crossing as well. We did have, I think, a fair amount of discussion about the landscape of statewide significance, and one part of that was a little bit of a devil's advocate discussion about could there be unintended consequences of that. But I think Josh and staff, Hillary as well, convinced us that the overall value in this is very, very large compared to any risk there. So I think we were very confident in these positions.
Anything else to add, Director McNiven? No. Okay. All right, thank you.
Hang on.
Director Riffle.
Yeah, I have a question for the committee. I was reading through the minutes, and there was some discussion about the CEQA and a definition in SB 131. And I was thinking, where is SB 131? Is that? Because did I miss it?
That was a bill that passed, that was a budget trailer bill that passed last year.
Oh,
And that one, the intention there is to just accelerate a variety of different projects. Probably the most significant ones would be infill housing.
right.
But then the legislature decided to decorate the Christmas tree and added other scenarios beyond housing where you would see CEQA streamlining. The two that were flagged by the conservation community the most were the advanced manufacturing facilities, which can use some very harsh chemicals, use large amounts of water.
Right.
So there's actually cleanup bills introduced this year, AB 1553, and there's a second one. So we're supporting those bills. We actually supported them last year. They were introduced, and now we're just waiting for them. Let me back up. There was a cleanup bill introduced last year. We took a support position. That bill was actually shelved. And so now there are two bills, follow-on bills, AB 1553 being one of them, and there's another bill, whose Senate bill whose number eludes me. They are currently in spot bill form. So they have placeholder language. We know that there are discussions behind the scenes. So I would presume in the next few weeks, we'll see, because there is a deadline for spot bills to become actual bills. Once we see that language, we'll take a look at how they're approaching the cleanup and decide whether we're going to support it or not. Okay. So that is in the pipeline. A lot of these spot bills. So for those, depending on the politics behind them, we may need to move quickly, and we'll be relying on board policy 1.11. Otherwise, we are planning on coming back to LAFPAC in April for the next tranche of positions, and then the board in May, mid-May, I believe.
Got it. Okay, good.
Oh, yes, Director Kishimoto.
I guess a related question is, I was thinking about the the housing bills, which of course are pushing for more and more housing, but potentially into areas which are susceptible to wildland fire. And can you give us a status?
Yeah, we've been working quite a bit with the Nature Conservancy and some other land organizations around bill concepts right now. And there was a bill, SB 715, Assemblymember Allen, who had one bill that was consistent with that concept of restricting site selections to, or actually in this case, restricting RHNA allocations, regional housing needs allocations, based on
Fire severity.
the amount of high fire severity zones
Right.
that existed within that municipality. Senator Allen is now running for state insurance commissioner.
Oh,
So-
really?
So he is looking to gut and amend that bill to be more insurance focused. He wants developers to get quotes on insurance for various types of climate risk based for that development. We have some concerns about that model because he also includes avenues to do, I guess, what he calls community mitigations, which would, if you perform these acts, you may lower the insurance enough where it becomes feasible to build in areas that are high climate risk. In many cases, we use climate risk as a proxy for essential habitat because, just frankly, the politics are more
Central
compelling.
habitat?
Essential habitat.
Essential.
So high fire zones, flood areas, salt marshes, certainly the forests on the coast, are all in high and very high fire severity zones. So,
Okay.
that would provide an avenue to encroach. So we're in active discussions, us and the Nature Conservancy, to better understand the proposal and maybe guide it in a different direction.
Okay.
But we do, with regard to housing, the other concept being pursued and actually led by the Nature Conservancy, I think we have our hands full with these two bills, or three priority bills, is to, in 2028, RENA 7 comes along. So we're in the seventh cycle of the regional housing needs allocation. It starts in Southern California, and then in 2031, it hits the Bay Area. So there needs, if you are going to change the way RENA is approached to better incorporate conservation concerns, it needs to be in a bill this year because it would take effect in 2027 and then
I see.
you
This
start
cycle.
the compliance process in 28.
Okay.
So there are still discussion. There's a concept that would model the metropolitan planning area down in Fresno, who uses, I guess, what they call a constrained model, where they have different GIS layers that define things like habitat and climate risk, and that would serve as a border for things like site selection.
I see. Okay. Well, I have another question, which is thinking of. So I'm on LAFCO in Santa Clara County, and so one thing that we've kind of struggled with sometimes is the farm worker housing, and then because you want to provide farm worker housing, but then how do you do the septic and the water? And so there's always been kind of a struggle there. So I don't know, have you seen anything related to those?
I haven't seen anything explicitly about farm worker housing. There has been some bills. In fact, there was a pilot that was, I think, between Santa Clara and Santa Cruz counties. San Mateo County opted not to participate to lower the bars for building farm worker housing.
Lower the bar with.
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to remember whether it was CEQA or something else.
Okay. Well,
I'd have to get back to you on that.
I see. It's
Remember having some exchanges with the county, whether
okay.
they were going to consider it.
It's yeah, we can talk about it later.
But this year I have not seen any.
Okay.
Though I have seen some grants around what they call disadvantaged farm worker communities. We do have some concerns about that. I think it's AB 1200 or AB 1600. And the concern there is that it prioritizes funding, but it favors migrant farm worker housing, which is generally not the model that is used in San Mateo County. We have permanent farm workers typically.
Yeah, I see.
So I've alerted I've alerted the county, I've alerted the RCDs about this, who've been working very closely with the farm worker community. I haven't gotten a lot of traction, but it's definitely a concern.
I see. I know, because it is. I mean, it is. The farm worker housing is a challenge because, you want to have farm worker housing there, but then that part has to be annexed, and can you keep it only for farm worker housing? That's kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
And it
that's
kind of
a
tends to
persistent
creep out.
issue.
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
Other questions? Comments? Yes, Director Riffle.
Just, this is off of the subject of our legislation, but of our sister agency. In June, the Open Space Authority has a parcel tax that has just been approved and ready to go.
Oh.
Right.
$17 million a year, which is more than double their budget. This is huge for them.
Oh, absolutely.
And so my question, and the way that it was will be put before the voters, it only requires 50.1%.
There's a citizen initiative.
Exactly.
I guess using the Uplands decision,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and has Post's fingerprints all over it. So just so
yes.
you know.
In fact, I think it was in the paper that they were.
Yeah. So I've been kind of watching for this for a few years, and so I'm just so happy that finally it's going to go. I'm crossing my fingers that it will pass. The question is Josh, is there any way that we can send letters of support or do anything, or is that as a government agency we need to stay away from that?
Well, we do weigh in on ballot measures.
Okay.
So eventually it'll be assigned a number, or I guess if it's a measure, maybe a letter. I'm trying to remember. A letter. I think it'll be a letter.
Okay.
I think at that point we'll, maybe at the request of board members, take a look at it and bring it back.
Okay.
We tend not to get involved with it through the campaign
Right.
or before it is assigned a number and it's published. And, the only concern I have about this is on the November ballot. I believe it's Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is looking to close
right.
that loophole.
Right.
And in prior efforts in that regard, they've made it retroactive.
Oh, no.
So it's just a question of how far.
But they've tried before to close the loophole and it failed, right?
Well, it wasn't the measure that they had was not specifically directed at it wasn't just that. I believe it was also there were other provisions in there that caused the courts to bounce this, and maybe Hillary has more insight into those provisions.
Right.
But there is a high likelihood that will be on the ballot.
Okay. In November. Well, in the meantime, let's take one step at a time.
Yes, exactly.
Let's hope they pass it in
Yeah,
June. So I guess at the appropriate time, if there's a way that we can show our support,
Yes.
let's do that.
Yeah. So it's in June. It's probably coming sooner than we expect.
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
So probably in late April, early May, we'd be taking a position.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good for doing that. Other comments, questions, directors? Well, before I entertain a motion, I just want to say, Josh, it is always a pleasure to hear you talk about all of the legislation that you have your arms around, totally, both for this year and in years past. It's always astonishingly impressive. Thank you so much for that fine work. And now I will entertain. Oh, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd be happy to make the motion to approve the recommended list of legislative positions for 2026.
Second?
All right, I have a motion by Director Kishimoto, a second by Director Ripple, to approve the recommended list of legislative positions for 2026 state legislative session. May I have a roll call, please?
Director McNiven,
Yes.
Director Kishimoto,
Yes?
President Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Riffle,
Yes.
Director Sear,
Yes.
and Director Gleason.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes our special meeting. We are now adjourned at 6:40. I like it. Wow, that was loud, wasn't it? All right. Good evening. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Midpeninsula Regional Open Space District. I'm Zoe Kirstine Tucker, President of the Board of Directors. This meeting is now called to order. It is 7:02. The meeting is being held in person and instructions for submitting public comments are available on the meeting agenda. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Director McNiven,
Here.
Director Kishimoto,
Here.
President Christine Tucker,
Here.
Director Riffle,
Here.
Director Sear,
Yes.
Director Gleason.
Here.
Thank you, and Director Holman is absent.
All right, thank you. Are there comments from members of the public on matters within the jurisdiction of the district but that are not on the agenda? No. Then we'll move on to adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion?
So move. Second.
So I have a motion from Director Sear, a second from Director Riffle, and a roll call, please.
Director McNiven,
Yes.
Director Kishimoto,
Yes.
President Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Riffle,
Yes.
Director Sear,
Yes.
Director Gleason.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Moving now to our
Save everybody's space.
consent calendar agenda, items 1 through 4. Does any member of the board wish to have an item pulled from the consent calendar? Seeing none. Are there any public comments on the consent calendar?
We do not.
Okay, very good. Then I will entertain a motion.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Riffle and a second from Director Gleason, and a roll call, please.
Director McNiven,
Yes.
Director Kishimoto,
Yes.
President Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Riffle,
Yes.
Director Sear,
Yes.
and Director Gleason.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, thank you. We will move on now to our board business item number 5, amendment to partnership agreement with San Mateo Resource Conservation District for implementation of the Johnston Ranch Habitat and Agricultural Water Supply Improvement Project. I'm wondering if we have any, Anna, would you like to make any preliminary comments, or would we go straight to the staff presentation? I think we can go ahead and start presentation. Okay, we'll move on then. To David.
Good evening, everyone. David Liefert, Senior Resource Management Specialist. We are back to discuss the Johnston Ranch Habitat and Agricultural Water Supply Improvement Project. There's the title slide. This project was last presented to the board in May of 2025. At that time, the recommendation was to enter a partnership agreement with the San Mateo Resource Conservation District, or RCD, to advance this project through design, and then to return to the board to include implementation funds to cover a portion of construction costs. And so that's why we're here again tonight. And I do want to start off by welcoming some of our project partners from Peninsula Open Space Trust, POST. We have Dylan Sonderman, who's the Working Lands Program Manager. And from the RCD, we have Ryan Silsby, who is a Senior Conservation Project Manager and is the project lead for the RCD, who is leading this project. And then behind me, I think hiding behind me, is Kellex Nelson, who's the Executive Director of the RCD. And I want to highlight that, Midpen acquired this land just in 2024, but there had been really decades of work before that to try to rebalance the availability of water for both habitat and agriculture. And POST and RCD were leading that effort for years and years before this project really came to Midpen. So acknowledging that and recognizing the importance of POST and the RCD's role in that effort, we're going to have Kellex start off this presentation and share her perspective. And then I'm going to go over the details of the project and the presentation. And then at the end, I'm going to ask Dylan to step up and he can say a few words in support of the project on behalf of POST. And then everyone will be around for questions at the end. So with that, I will hand it over to Kellex.
Welcome, Kellex.
Thank you. It's great to see you all. So yes, indeed, POST and the RCD have worked on this project for many years. In fact, going back over 20 years when I was the project manager at POST.
Really?
When I was 12. And so for me, it's really gratifying seeing this finally come to fruition. It's been a great partnership. We're all bringing different strengths and resources and perspectives. The part of the reason that this is exciting to me is that when in the mid-90s, when steelhead trout were listed for protection under the Endangered Species Act, the in-stream water storage for this farm, which were in-stream dams, had to be opened. And so this farm in the field along the highway became the iconic, highly visible representation of if it's fish versus farmer, the farmer will lose. And so it's been many years of working towards these multi-benefit, win-win projects where we can find ways for agriculture to be viable and for creeks to be protected. And I think this project shows that. This project, part of the reason it's also exciting to me to see it really moving forward is this site, we work on many projects that involve off-stream storage, and this is one that had among the most complexity and site constraints. So what the project team has landed on is something that involved considering a lot of different sites, a lot of different design concepts, working with the farmer to find something that really works for him and that he really wants, something that protects the conservation values, and then also something that is in a sweet spot of where there's actually cost benefit. Any one of these values, conservation or agricultural viability, you could probably get more, but the marginal improvement for the cost is going to be lower and lower, and the trade-offs higher and higher. So I just think that where the team landed is great. Excited about this project. Happy to be part of it, and thanks for having us tonight.
Thank you, Kelix.
All right, thank you, Kelix. So the General Manager's recommendation tonight is to authorize an amendment to that existing partnership agreement with the San Mateo RCD to include implementation funding to cover a portion of the construction costs for this project. Here's a brief agenda. So skipping over to the second part, the first thing I'll talk about is going over the property history. This is something that I went over in the last presentation last year, but I think is really interesting to explore. And we'll talk about the RCD's project as originally envisioned and designed in 2020. And then we'll talk through the conservation opportunities at the Johnston Ranch Uplands property and how Midpen stepped in to partner with the RCD to determine a project that would accomplish all the goals for the project, both for agriculture and for habitat, and how that project was redesigned in 2024. And then we'll dive into some details about the proposed amendment and the financial arrangement to fund this project. So in 2024, the district acquired the Uplands portion of Johnston Ranch, which is shown in green, and Post retained a portion of that ranch for farming, and that's shown in tan. And so the project footprint that's shown in red, in that red box kind of squarely in the center, is where we'll be zooming in on and discussing the details of this project. So now zooming in, but going backwards in time, here's an aerial photo from 1931 looking down at Johnston Ranch. So there's that same square box to help orient yourself. And at that time, you can see in the top left there are these in-stream reservoirs that were formed from these in-stream concrete dams that Kelix was talking about. And at that time, that was the primary source of water for this agricultural operation. And then looking within that red box, you can see the barn that still exists today. And you can see that the tributary draining the grasslands above the Johnston Ranch property went straight down to Arroyo Leon Creek, providing that habitat continuity. And then you can see in that inset map, which is an aerial image of the site today, that tributary no longer exists and that a stock pond had been built. So now fast forwarding 25 years to 1956, a much clearer image, you can see that those in-stream reservoirs are still there, and you can see that by 1956, the stock pond had been constructed and that tributary connecting to Arroyo Leon had been filled in. And outflow from this stock pond was then artificially routed across the hillside into an adjacent tributary to the north. And so that increased the flows in that tributary relative to natural conditions and has resulted in a good amount of incision. So then in the late 1990s, as Post purchased the Johnston Ranch property as a whole, California steelhead, Central California coast steelhead, were listed under the Endangered Species Act. And so the regulatory agencies like California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the National Marine Fisheries Services stepped in and required that these dams be decommissioned. And so all that really meant was opening up these gates that you can see in the photos and permanently opening them so they can no longer hold back water. And that's what they still look like today. And the RCD and Midpen, in a separate project, are studying these features to determine their status as fish passage barriers and to work together to address those barriers if needed. So in 2001, this aerial image shows, I think this is the last time you would see in an aerial image the in-stream reservoirs and decommissioned thereafter. And you can see that the stock pond at this point had been mostly filled in by sediment. We think that this happened in just a couple of big storms in the 1980s. And so at that time, it doesn't really represent a useful agricultural water supply. It once held 30, 35, 40 acre feet of storage, but now it only holds about 1 acre foot of storage. But it also still represents really important red-legged frog breeding habitat. So since 2001, the RCD and Post have worked together to replace that agricultural water supply, and that's mostly been done through pond repairs on the western side of the property. So those Post-owned lands shown in tan in this photo still have other reservoirs in addition to the Johnston Ranch stock pond that's on the Midpen-owned land today. And so again, most of that work so far has been on the western side of the property with those other ponds. And so after that work had occurred, that kind of left everyone's attention focused on the Johnston Ranch stock pond on what is now Midpen-owned land. Back in 2020, the RCD prepared conceptual designs for expanding that stock pond. This is when it was still under Post ownership. And the design would expand this pond from 1 acre foot of storage today up to 40 acre feet, so trying to replace that agricultural water supply. And then in 2023, the RCD secured grant funding from the Department of Water Resources to design and implement the project. So by 2024, when Midpen had acquired the Johnston Ranch uplands, there had already been this 25-year-long history of work from Post and the RCD to replace that agricultural water supply. And Midpen was really just new to the property and coming on the scene for the first time. Now, right away, we had identified several restoration and conservation opportunities at the property. So there is an existing California red-legged frog breeding pond, and therefore there is potential San Francisco garter snake. And so like many ponds throughout Midpen lands, we identified the opportunity to expand that pond, recontour it to allow for more successful breeding. It's also a important pasture for conservation grazing, and so to supply additional water, especially in the late summer for conservation grazing, a typical approach from Midpen would be to expand the existing pond to provide a more reliable source of water for the conservation grazing program. And then finally, as I pointed out before, because of that artificial rerouting of outflow from the pond, there is a chronic erosion issue at this site, and that leads to degraded habitat within Arroyo León Creek for recovering salmonid species. And so based on preliminary analyses, we estimated that all of these actions would cost around $1 million. So here's a nice drone photo. Thank you, Ryan, for providing all these drone photos. Looking east across Higgins Road. So the stock pond is in the top right, kind of the opposite angle as that title slide showed. And what I'm highlighting here is the outfall channel that I've indicated with that blue dashed line for pond outflow. And so that's an artificial rerouting of outflow discharge from this pond into that adjacent tributary. And you can see in that image on the bottom left that that's led to quite a bit of incision. And so that's sending sediment downstream into the creek. I'm also highlighting that the spillway at the outlet of the pond is a bit undersized and has this kind of tricky flashboard system that's difficult to control during floods. And so sure enough, in 2023, when we had those big storm systems coming through, there was overtopping of the berm, and you can see some of that erosion on the earthen berm shown in that inset photo on the bottom right. So that highlights the need to work on this pond for the conservation of this existing red-legged frog breeding habitat, as well as from a safety standpoint. So let's look at the proposed design from the RCD in 2020. So this was the original vision. Here again, we're looking across Higgins Road at that same angle. This again would have included expanding the stock pond to 40 acre-feet in size, and then diverting that water to the adjacent post-owned farmland where it could be used for irrigation. There would also be irrigation efficiencies implemented on the post-owned farmland so that that water would go further. And then there would be a forbearance agreement for protecting summer low flow period in Arroyo León, so concentrating the pumping during the winter time when water is more plentiful. So it turned out that upon further study and investigation that this original design was going to be really challenging to implement for several reasons. From an engineering standpoint, the sediments in the pond were not suitable for engineering the larger embankment needed to expand the pond, and so that would have required importing fill, which would have been very, very expensive. And it also would have been operationally challenging for Midpen to have a single reservoir on its land that was used for irrigation of farmland on adjacent property, as well as providing enough water for the conservation grazing program in late summer and for successful California red-legged frog breeding. So all three of those priorities have different timing and demands of water use, and it's very difficult to try to get all of that in a single basin. And so what we did was the district and RCD partnered to redesign this project in a way that accomplished all of the above: agricultural water supply and habitat improvements. And it also tackled the problem of mitigation. So the impacts of that original project may have required mitigation for the impacts to the existing red-legged frog habitat. In this redesigned project, we're actually creating new habitat through stream channel and pond improvements. And so this might actually generate a surplus of mitigation credit that we could use to offset impacts from other projects and other sites. So here's a look at this redesigned project that Midpen funded in 2024. So there still calls for, it's still calling for an expansion of the stock pond, but just up to 5 acre-feet, which is a kind of more typical size of a stock pond for conservation grazing purposes and for red-legged frog breeding success. It also is going to include restoration of the stream channel and the riparian corridor leading from the stock pond down to Arroyo León Creek, reconnecting habitat in Arroyo León Creek with those upland areas. And then it would include stabilization of that artificial channel along the hillside that's routing outflow to the adjacent tributary. That would still exist, but as an emergency outlet, so that flows would be reduced relative to today and would slow down the rate of that incision. Then there would be a new irrigation basin built next to the barn, and water would be conveyed through a pipeline to that new basin from the stock pond. And then water would be stored there where it could be pumped to the adjacent farmland owned by Post. There would still be, we would still implement irrigation efficiencies on the Post-owned land, and there would still be a forbearance agreement to protect summer flows in Arroyo León Creek. And you'll notice that the new reservoir is labeled as 15 to 20 acre-feet in size. So currently, the project has designs and funding for constructing the 15 acre-foot basin, and when combined with the 5 acre-foot stock pond, that provides for a new total storage of 20 acre-feet. But we also submitted applications to the regulatory agencies with an alternative design for a 20 acre-foot irrigation reservoir. And so if bids come in low, and we expect this to be a competitive project for the RFB, then we would apply that extra funding to build out that additional storage, so bringing the total storage to up to 25 acre-feet. There's also permitting streamline considerations for that approach. It would be difficult to get above that number because you would have to get a coastal development permit. There's an exemption for storage beneath 25 acre-foot threshold. And it's also difficult to get any bigger because of the site constraints there. You can see that it's right up against the barn, Higgins Road, a pump station that's needed, and the adjacent tributary. So like Alex was explaining, it's a very constrained site, and it will be very difficult to add any additional storage. So this project really does accomplish everything that all the project partners were trying to accomplish. So it achieves those conservation goals that I highlighted for red-legged frog, for protecting salmonid habitat in Arroyo León, and for providing new water storage for the conservation grazing program. It additionally achieves that original goal of replacing agricultural water supply lost because of the decommissioning of those dams, and it again satisfies the anticipated regulatory mitigation that could have been required through that original design. And again, this is really recreating brand new habitat or restoring that was lost. So here is a summary of the funding arrangement back in 2025. The last time this was brought to the board is that top line of that table, and then here today in March. And so at the last board meeting, there was a pretty sizable funding gap, and we have since closed that funding gap because of additional contributions from Post and from the RCD and their grant. And I do want to highlight that the RCD is contributing additional funds to this project for irrigation efficiencies and for permitting and staff time. That's not shown here. I'm just showing the construction costs. This table is overviewing the district spending on this project. So the top 3 lines show the partnership agreement that we're proposing to amend today. So the 65% designs and grant administration fees were covered under that board authorization from last year. And then highlighted in green is the request for the construction costs tonight. And then below are additional costs associated with this project. So there was the conceptual design, the alternative that was developed in 2024, and then a future item to include new water infrastructure to help move water away from the stock pond into a trough system so that it can better distribute the grazing impacts. And so that would return to the board at a future date for an award of contract. So next steps, if approved, would be to amend the agreement to include these construction costs, again, to cover a portion of the total cost to construct the project. The RCD has been leading this project and we continue to lead through construction, and we are on track to implement the project in summer of 2026. So that's very soon. So that's the end of the presentation, and I'm happy to take questions. We also have Post and RCD staff, and I would love to invite Dylan up, and he can share a few words on behalf of Post.
Thanks, David, and great presentation. Really just going to keep this short and sweet. Excited to be here, really excited to see this project get to this point. Grateful for Kellex and the RCD and David and the rest of district staff for all of the hard work to get here. This project is a great example of all 3 of our organizations working together to support multi-benefits. It'll have huge impacts for the agricultural operations at the neighboring Johnston Farm, where water insecurity has and will hopefully not continue to be a major concern of John Giusti and his family. They've been longtime operators on the coast, are great neighbors, and really just excited to see how all of us working together can provide habitat benefits, provide conservation grazing benefits, and support agriculture. So would urge the district to keep this moving forward.
Thank you so much, Dylan.
Dylan, before you leave, could you just say a little bit about your new position?
Yeah, so I'm Dylan Sonderman. I'm the new Working Lands Program Manager at Post. For the past 3 years, I've been the Conservation Easement Manager at Post, so familiar with this property as we prepare for a future transfer to the Giusti family, subject to an agricultural conservation easement. And in my new role, focused on our farmland and ranchland strategies on the coast and beyond.
Great.
Congratulations.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Anybody else?
We're all done. Ready
All
for
right.
questions if you have
I'm
any.
guessing there are some questions. Directors. We'll start at this end. Director Gleason.
Yeah, so here you had I think, challenges with two distinct agricultural uses, and also you have multiple land managers. It sounds to me like the partnership has enabled you to really do the right design as if it were one land manager. Would you say is this the same design you would do if you would own the whole thing?
It's a really good question, and I think that's true. I mean, there's a lot of trust between these agencies, right? And nobody was trying to leverage anything in these early discussions. We really just all sat at the table and kind of worked through various iterations of this project, just as we would with a project team at Midpen or the RCD. So yeah, we've been meeting bi-weekly for like 2 years at this point. We've gone through a lot of different variations of this project, and I consider the RCD and Post colleagues just like I would sometimes other Midpen staff. So yeah, I would say yes.
Great, yeah. Thank you all.
Director Riffle.
So just to follow on to that, and Kellex, to you or anybody from RCD, this will be what, your 12th pond, or how many ponds? I mean, you guys are experts at this by this time, right?
Dozens.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think we have some on our Cloverdale, right? We
Yeah,
have
well,
one.
I mean, there's ponds that are more like stockwater ponds that are, we've done restoration that are really focused on the pond being habitat and a source of water for maybe cattle. There's other ponds in which the pond infrastructure may not be focused as habitat. It's more about protecting stream flow while balancing agricultural viability. Sometimes constructing, sometimes repairing, sometimes expanding. And also, some of them are tanks or other water storage
right.
features instead of ponds.
Right.
Some of them are domestic and some of them are agricultural.
Wow.
Altogether, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. And maybe, Kellex, you're the right person for this. I was shocked that we're construction this summer. Is that what I heard? But
It's
this
not really
is-
feeling fast to me.
But this has taken how many years to get to this point? In a way, we're kind of coming in at the very end, right?
I mean, yeah, I think it depends on when you start the clock.
Yeah.
When I was at Post in the early 2000s, we were focused on the Yoshikawa ponds and maybe some other things. But honestly, part of it is that the regulatory environment has advanced and being able to do multi-benefit projects. And also, I think we've demonstrated proof of concept with a number of ponds on the coast, so it's a known type of project, it's a known quantity now.
Right.
But, I mean, in this last iteration, this last push has been how many years? Since before you started? Okay.
Wow.
This last design.
That's incredible. That's great. Good. And then last question, Kellex, is where you guys are just magicians when it comes to finding money. Where is the funding that you found for the RCD portion of this?
Well, this has been a little bit of a walnut shell game, but the last iteration is DWR, is that right? Or is it WCB? So let me explain what that is. So the DWR is the Department of Water Resources through their Integrated Regional Water Management program.
Okay.
And we had secured block funding for a number of different projects. And the reason I said it's been a little bit of a shell game is because sometimes there are some ponds projects that have been more competitive for like Wildlife Conservation Board money, which might then make more money available for this project because different projects have maybe more about the human right to water, some maybe more about agricultural viability, some maybe more about in-stream habitat. That we try to design them so that they all have multiple benefits, but some fit better under certain funding programs, and ultimately this has been under DWR.
That's great. Good. Great. Thank you.
Director Kishimoto.
Thank you. It's nice to see you here.
It's good to see you, too.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful project and design. So thank you for your leadership on this. Well, two quick questions. I guess one is just to remind me, so the Juicies have been surviving with just on well water, or how
They've got some water storage. They've got some, and they've got, but they haven't been irrigating as much as they used to.
Okay, so this should really help them expand out their fields and make it more
At
dependable.
minimum, this should give them some security into the future. But in terms of expanding, I would leave that to folks who are more involved in the design. Do you want to come up here so anybody who might be oh, this isn't online.
No,
It's not online, yeah.
We're
You can
recording
come on
it.
up.
You can come on up anyway. Yeah.
I hear you.
It's their farming year is very, very dictated by the water year. So in drought years, they have to cut back on production. And so around February, they have to make their crop plan and decide how much they're going to put in irrigated crops, which make much more money, and what's going to be fallow, no money, and what's going to be dry cropped, dry farmed, a little tiny, probably like 10% of the revenue of their irrigated crops. So that's the kind of roller coaster that they are dealing with at that site right now. And so we're hoping to give them drought resiliency so that they can not be so dependent on water years the way they have been in the past for the past 20 years at this site.
Okay, that's great. And then,
I'll add on to that
Okay.
as well. It's also just about having different sources and different options. The existing reservoirs that they rely on are old, are sedimented. Who knows how long they will last? So they have, as they're preparing to hopefully purchase this property, they want to have this long-term security to know
Reliability.
that they'll, have a profitable and water source. So.
okay, that's great. And then, one question that occurred to me was, did the team consider adding more ponds?
We thought it was very creative to come up with 2 ponds in the first place. Three ponds did not occur to us.
One of the other things that we often deal with is that there's trade-offs between all these infrastructure demands and space to actually have production, especially if you also have an upland ranching activities. So when we're asking farmers sometimes, or they're asking for, they maybe need, barns and, processing infrastructure and maybe farm labor housing and maybe on-site composting and a place for a truck to turn around and water storage. The more of the ag support infrastructure they have, the less space there is to farm.
I see.
So there can be trade-offs.
Right. You think there's so much land, but of course,
Yeah.
there's a constraint.
Yeah.
I understand.
Especially on the coast where these farms are, relatively speaking for California, very small.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
On the stock ponds, the cows aren't going to go down and drink out of it, are they? Or are they? Where are the cows going to get their water?
Could you put the map
Yeah.
back up, David?
So-
Could you put the map back up? Just 'cause I think it's a good question. Very good.
So the stock pond in the top right is still going to be a primary water source for the conservation grazing program.
Yes.
But that additional future project that I had mentioned as coming back to the board for an award of contract is going to involve designing and implementing this trough system that's going to have a pump in the pond, pull water out, store it in a tank, and then supply troughs away from the pond. And there's going to be some additional fencing projects led by facilities and fleet on top of that. And so we expect the water infrastructure that I just described to go in right after this project is constructed, so late fall of 2026 of this year.
So the cows go down to the pond now?
They can get to the pond now, yes. Sure.
I would say that it is common practice for us often to have cows be part of managing the vegetation in ponds.
Oh, yeah.
And so, in fact, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service reversed their opinion on this a few years ago because there was a recognition that in some of these ponds where cows weren't allowed at all, the frogs were not doing as well. as they were in some of the ponds that had managed cattle access, not unmanaged, but managed cattle access can, in some circumstances, there's no cookie cutter for this, but in some cases, it can be a management tool.
I never thought of that. I'm glad to hear that you'll let the cows go down.
Yeah, because if the ponds become entirely overgrown with vegetation
Right.
And filled in and that sort of thing, they lose some habitat.
Yeah.
So you might want some diversity of features in your pond, and sometimes, in some circumstances, cows can be good for that.
And this is kind of dumb, but I see 2 ponds in the picture. That's what you refer to as the pond.
Yes.
Yes.
It confused me for the longest time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Thank you. So there are 3 ponds. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Other great questions? We got an A-team here. Anybody have some hard ones? Oh, Director Riffle.
Actually, this is an easy one. Can you remind us, maybe David, what was our land versus post land?
Yeah, it's the boundary is the. Can you see this? You can't see this. Is the edge of the agricultural field right here.
Oh,
so
okay.
everything in this image is owned by Midpen, except
Okay.
for this little sliver right here.
Okay. I didn't realize that the ag center was on our land. Is that still an operating ag center there? So that is on our land.
Sorry, you're talking about the barn here?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and there shouldn't be any impacts. There's a corral right here that's going to be relocated to the other side of the barn, so we don't expect any impacts. Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, thanks. So this barn here is used for Tom Pacheco, the conservation grazing tenant with Midpen.
Good point.
Is not used by John Giusti. His operations are located
that
to the
makes
north of
sense.
here
Okay.
on post-owned land.
Got it. And since your height,
Actually on his own land. Thank you. This is why I have a team of people answering questions.
since your pointer is on one of the dash lines, what's the significance of the dash lines around the pond?
That was my low-tech way of just showing the footprint of the reservoir, and that it's kind of going to have a sloped embankment. I'm kind of replicating the 100% design plans, which are very complicated, so I avoided actually sharing them in this presentation because they're just too confusing.
Okay.
But I kind of stole some artistic notes from the engineer's design plan.
So the constructed area will be the outer ring.
That's right. The
I see.
footprint of the reservoir is wider, covers a greater area.
So would the water level come up to that outer ring on good years, or what's?
We expect that the reservoir will easily fill, even during dry years. We have hydrology monitoring data during an average water year, and we're able to measure the outflow from the stock pond.
Yep.
That's going to be the primary source of runoff for both ponds. And the amount of water coming through that pond was something like 80 acre-feet for an average water year.
Wow.
And we're hoping to store up to 25.
Right.
And so there should be plenty to
Yeah.
flow down that new restored stream channel into Arroyo Leone.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And that's a exposed stream channel. It's not a
That's right.
nice,
Yeah.
like it used to be.
Great.
Other questions? I had a quick one. I noticed that the ag community or the farmers seemed quite interested in bigger is better. So there's the possibility that this could be up to 25 acre feet. When will we know whether we can expand to that or we're going to stick with 20?
As soon as we get bids in.
Okay.
So Ryan is leading the bidding process and can speak to that, but it depends on the bids we receive.
Okay.
If they're lower than the engineer's estimate, then we can implement the larger
So we should know
design.
pretty darn soon.
We should know very soon, the next
Okay.
couple of months.
I would also add that these designs are based on the farmer who's actually on the property and his input over time, and he likes these designs, so.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a good distinction. All right, before we move on to director comments, let me ask if there are any public comment.
We do not have any.
No public commenters. Okay. Comments now. Would you like to share some thoughts?
I like
Director?
the stabilizing channel being helped, giving it some help. It looks terrible. So, keep my fingers crossed on that one. Thank
Speak
you.
a little louder or into the
Oh,
mic,
yeah.
please.
I was just saying that stabilizing that channel is a really good thing because it's very
Eroded.
destructive and yeah. Thank you.
Other
Good,
comments?
good project.
I think our Coast Side board people should, representatives.
I'll make a motion.
First, I just want to say something, though.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I'm sitting here looking at this
Yeah.
project and thinking back to the late 90s, well, way before that, the vision that people post and Midpen had for the coast, way, way long time ago.
When Kellex was 12?
Well, she was probably not even born then. and then, you know, the whole annexation of the coast into the district's boundaries in order to protect this farmland and the natural resources here. I'm just struck by how long it takes to go from fish versus farmers to fish and farmers working together and understanding that there are so many mutual benefits. And what it really takes is organizations like the RCD, leaders like Kellex, organizations like Post, and the wonderful men and women of Midpen to just come together and stick with it year after year. It hasn't been easy, a lot of this work. There's been a lot of headwinds, both regulatory, community, if you will. There's just been a lot of things that have made it very, very difficult to do this work. And right now, I'm looking at this and thinking, we're winning. It's working. What we've brought together over the years with so many people and so much hard work, it's finally happening. And so many projects are coming to fruition that benefit this agricultural community, benefit the people that make their living off the land, and also benefit the natural resources that are so precious and important here on the coast. So I just have the utmost respect and appreciation for the work that you all do. And I'm very excited about this project. It feels like a real poster child for this group of people. So,
Sounds like a motion to me.
okay, I'll make a motion
And I'll second.
to authorize an amendment to the partnership agreement with the RCD, et cetera. Okay, so a motion by me and a second by Director McNiven, and we'll take a roll call, please.
Director McNiven,
Yes.
Director Kishimoto,
Yes.
President Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Ripple,
Yes.
Director Sear,
Yes.
Director Gleason.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so inspired. We'll move now to board business item number 6, and that is our comprehensive ecologically sensitive vegetation management report. And Cody.
A little mood lighting. All right, good evening. Cody Cifuentes Winters, Senior Resource Management Specialist, and I'm here to present the Comprehensive Ecological Sensitive Vegetation Management Report for 2022 and 2023. So tonight, I'm looking at the wrong thing. So tonight there is no board action. It's just to receive the report about our different vegetation management projects that we have going on in the district.
Cody, before you get going, when would you like questions? I'm guessing you're going to cover a lot of things. And
Please ask questions as we move through the material. Thank you for teeing that up.
thank you.
So tonight we'll go over a quick overview of the vegetation management report. We'll talk about conservation grazing, integrated pest management, the wildland fire resiliency, some miscellaneous projects, and then finally we'll just close. So we really have three major programs here at the district that helps us to manage our lands. These are the Conservation Grazing Program, the Fire Program, and the Integrated Pest Management Program. And you'll notice that we have these overlapping circles because in many cases, much of the work that we do overlaps. So our conservation grazing can help us to suppress weeds, but it can also reduce fire and fuels in areas. Our IPM program can help out with the grazing program. You've heard 2 weeks ago about our brush management that we do. That's done under our IPM program. And then finally, our fire program can really assist a lot of times with how we do our work as we prioritize invasive species that are definitely flammable throughout the areas. And then finally, we do have these miscellaneous projects that have their own special little CEQA documents. And so we'll just provide an overview of what some of those projects are. But before we go there, we want to talk a little bit about what ESVM, also known as Ecologically Sensitive Vegetation Management. These are guidelines that we use when we are developing any of our vegetation projects. These might include, these always include special status and nesting bird surveys that we do to make sure that we're not impacting the folks that we're trying to help out. We will put in biological monitors as needed if it's a sensitive site. We'll provide wildlife refugia. These are areas in which we aren't going to go and do work. We'll actually let it lay where it's at and make sure that none of the workers go into those areas. Sometimes we will we'll make sure that we're doing wildlife-friendly mowing. So a lot of times you'll see when people are mowing at their house, they'll do the perimeter first and they'll slowly move into the circle. We actually don't do that. We'll actually start at a roadside and we'll move into the site. And the idea is to flush the wildlife into the wildland setting instead of into a road or getting entrapped within the mowing perimeter. So why do we do ecologically sensitive management? So I'm just going to show you just a few of the 87 special status animals and 46 special status plants that we have that make up our space here in Midpen. We got the Kings Mountain manzanita. We have the California red-legged frog, the monarch butterfly, the Venus thistle. So quite a number of different special status species that we have in our 70,000 acres that we manage. So getting into what type of treatments do we do, they can be sort of categorized into a couple different categories. We got biological, that's where we're using the natural enemies. So we have like a weevil that we can release for yellow star thistle, or the use of cows or other livestock to go after, say, medusa head. We can use chemicals. That's the use of pesticides. Those are only we only use those that are approved by the board of directors. So we have a very curated list of those, and those are sort of used as a last resort. So we want to make sure that we can go through all the different methods that we have, and if we can meet our objectives, great. But if we can't meet our objectives, that's when we'll consider the use of herbicides. Cultural techniques. This is your boot brushes that we have at all of our trailheads or our bike brushes as well. And some people consider the use of fire also to be a cultural method. Manual. This is where the vast majority of our work happens, and we'll see coming up here shortly for our IPM program at least. It is mostly done with a manual. That's just grabbing it and pulling it out. Mechanical, that's the use of machinery, so brush cutters, tractors, mowers, chainsaws. And then finally, there is another method, and that is the no action, the lack of human presence. In those cases, we sometimes will want to not do management in an area. This could be for a number of reasons. One, maybe it's a cultural significant site, and we want to leave it alone. Two, maybe there's wildlife there that are very sensitive to the presence of humans, and so we want to make sure that if the wildlife is there, that we are staying out of that area. Another reason we might have no action is that we just want to see how it's going to respond, what is going on at that site.
Cody, sorry,
Yes.
question. Back on cultural. You kind of alluded to this, but I didn't see it in the report about either embracing or utilizing or understanding Native American practices. How are we approaching that?
Yeah, so during the development of the FIRE program, that is actually one of the objectives that we wrote into the FIRE program is what we call TEK, or Traditional Ecological Knowledge. And so that is actually engaging with the tribes and asking them how they would be treating that site and sort of following their lead in that.
Okay, and so is it mostly just burning, or is there other?
So there is other methods which tribes used, and those aren't actually captured into the other programs. It's just captured in our FIRE program. But there is other methods where they would go and limb up or prune trees or shrubs in a certain way to have it make a certain growth habit.
Okay, so that's, as far as our embracing or understanding or incorporating, it's somewhat opportunistic, or it's how do we make that call, I guess?
Yeah, so currently our engagement with tribes is really focused in with the FIRE program.
Yeah,
That's where most of their interest is as well.
Yeah,
We
okay.
do get a request, a permit request to do collections on our land sometimes for certain species.
Right.
And so we try to help to facilitate that as much as we possibly can. I do maintain a list of ethnobotanical species, which we share with our consultants. So when they're going out doing botanical surveys, they'll also note where we see these ethnobotanical resources that then I can provide to the tribes if they're interested.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So moving on into conservation grazing. So conservation grazing is a land management practice that uses livestock. For Midpen, we mostly use cattle, though we have used goats in the past, and I personally am very interested in actually the use of sheep. And we use it at low intensities to maintain or enhance biodiversity. So the goal is not to increase cattle or the size of the cattle, but is actually to use them as a management tool to get certain biodiversity goals. So in 2022, we had 2 consecutive dry seasons, and so it was a pretty rough year in terms of the seasonality and the annual grasses for the cattle response out there. We did maintain, in most cases, the RDM levels at or above where we wanted it. But like I said, we went through 2 years of pretty intense drought in which we had to work with our partners, our tenants and ranchers, to reduce the amount of cattle that were on the land to make sure that we maintained what we call RDM, the residual dry matter, at their target levels. In 2023, we had some record rainfall, so it was sort of a whiplash, well over 50 inches of rain out on the San Mateo coast, and all sites really bounced back really, really quickly. It was actually a really nice year after going through the drought for the 3 years. So some of the successes we had our RDM compliance. So we made sure that we maintained that residual dry matter. We were very adaptive, and we were able to work with our ranching partners to make sure that we could pull cattle off without doing it like last minute. So we were working with them early in the season, making sure that they understood, there is a high potential that we're going to have to pull some cattle off. And in fact, we did have to do that in one area. But everybody, communication is key in those type of situations. And then we saw a really great, like I said, the native recovery from the drought seasons. Some of the difficulties, water and infrastructure. Here we see one of the troughs that actually sprung a leak. So having our conservation grazing manager to be able to go out there and fix these sort of things. And we had some extensive storm damage as well from the 2023 storms. Invasive species is always and ever present on many of our lands, and then brush encroachment, which of course you guys all heard about 2 weeks ago about the great work that we've been doing over the last few years. But some of the storm damage that we saw here, we see storm damage to a road at Cloverdale Ranch after heavy rains in 2023. And then we saw some damage to the berm of the Midpeninsula pond, and this is one of our projects that we have coming up to fix this pond. But it's not all doom and gloom, right? We also, with the use of our cattle, we see things like the sky lupin at Tenias Creek Ranch, where we have this really amazing bloom of sky lupin. With that, we're going to transition over to integrated pest management, but is there any questions about the conservation grazing? So the conservation grazing, the integrated pest management program, its report is a lot more technical as compared to our other two programs. So we're going to be seeing some tables and some graphs here. This first one is the number of species that we treat. The San Mateo or the Santa Cruz Mountain region has about 3,600 different plant species. But as you can see from what we actually treat, in 2022 we treated 91, and in 2023 we treated 78 of those. So we're only going after those species that are causing the most damage to the environment. So we do not target every single species. We're very selective because as you can imagine with 3,600 different species, there's just no way for us to go after all of them. And many of those species that are considered non-native do contribute to the biodiversity of the area and do contribute to habitat for wildlife.
So is that number native and non-native species?
It is,
okay.
correct, yes.
I see.
Yeah. What you're seeing across in this table is different ways that we look at these species. So for the Cal-IPSI rating, Cal-IPSI stands for the California Invasive Plant Council. And so they look at how much damage a particular species can do, and then they rank it. They have a watch list. These are what they call the sleeper species. These are species that have high potential to become very damaging, but currently are not exhibiting that damage impact to the environment. But they're very important for us to be watching out for and treating them if we do see them starting to get a little bit out of control. The limited, moderate, and high, I think those sort of explain what they do. The one thing to keep in mind with the Cal-IPSI rating, this is for the entire state. So when a species is designated as a high, it is a high impact for the entire state of California. And if it's a limited, sometimes it can be very high in certain locations. And here we see that on the coast with, say, eucalyptus. So eucalyptus is rated by Cal-IPSI as a limited range, but when you read into the literature of it, it says that it is highly invasive on the coastal range of California. So the district is not treated as a limited species. We actually treat it as a moderate species. So our work is completed through not just staff, but with our volunteer base, along with contractors. This here shows you the number of hours through the years as we've gone. Excuse me. And for the years 2022 and 2023, you'll see little symbols next to them. If it's an up arrow, that means that it's above average. If it's a down arrow, it means that it's below average. And then if you see the squiggly lines, it's about average, within about 5%. So what we have seen with our staff in 2022 was about average. In 2023, we did see a dip in the amount of hours that our staff was doing. That was because they were pulled into either fire program, which just got started in 2023, or we had Measure AA projects as well. We see that we had contractors increase in 2022, and then our volunteer base also increased in 2022 and in 2023.
I do have a question about the volunteer base. So I understood that the volunteer participation really fell off during COVID, but how do we, I mean, in 2022 and 2023, we have a lot more volunteers. How did that happen?
One of the biggest reasons is that we got another volunteer program lead.
Oh, right. That's right. I did read that.
That was one of the biggest, where we see that jump. And you can see that 2022 hours, about 2,000. So that was, well less than half of what we normally see.
And you may be getting to this, but I did wonder, I mean, we love our volunteers and they're really important, but there's also a cost associated with managing them. And so do we think about, do we have enough volunteers? Do we need more? Or are we kind of at that point where we would have to bring on more staff to manage if we bring in more volunteers?
We would
Is there
definitely
a
have to bring
sweet
in more
spot?
staff
Yeah.
to bring in volunteers. And a matter of fact, last year we did bring in one more volunteer program lead, so we now have 3. That third one, though, is for trails. So he's focused on trails only, versus the other 2 volunteer program leads focus on invasive species mostly, but also other resource management, so like seeding of areas, planting of areas, and such.
So we're not just looking to bring on an unlimited number of volunteers. We want to take good care of the ones we have and manage them properly.
We need to take care of the ones that we have, and I sort of alluded to the no impact or the no management under the methods. One thing to keep in mind is that human presence on the landscape has an impact on wildlife. Mm-hmm. It has been documented over and over again, and so the number of people you bring out not only can affect wildlife, but it also can affect the ground. There's trampling that's going on. And so we need to make sure that we have the right ratio of staff members to the number of volunteers that we have. And so we have to limit the number of volunteers we have just to make sure that we have oversight and that we're not doing more impact and more damage than the good that we're doing with them.
All right. Appreciate knowing that we're really paying attention to that. Martin, thank you. Okay.
So for these 2 years, like I said, the vast majority is done manually. So 88% of our work is manual. This is just pulling it out of the ground. About 3% is mechanical, and we did see an increase in our chemical use up to 9%. Over on the right-hand side, we have some typical numbers. These are just to provide you a general idea about what it costs the district to do this type of work. The contractors, those dollar amounts are based off of our request for bids, and so we'll look at the request for bids, the winning bids, and those are just the average costs that we have across the board for contractors. For staff, we're looking at our OSTs, our open space technicians, and I work with finance to figure out what their costs are. And then finally, volunteers. So every year there is a nonprofit that puts out what volunteers are quote-unquote worth. And so that's what the numbers that you see there. The right below that is the total dollar amount that was spent. This is, I put spent in quotation marks again because volunteers, though, they're not free. So keep that in mind. We do have a lot of work that we put into them, a lot of training, a lot of talks with them. But we also have our volunteer program leads as well. But just to give you a general sense of what costs are associated with IPM.
So a follow-up question to that. You said that number for the volunteers represents what they're worth. Is that right? But that's different from what it's actually costing us to run the volunteer program.
Correct. Yeah. So we have 3 volunteer program leads that that we pay for, plus the tools and the supplies, and then other staff members that provide enrichment to those volunteers. There's the gas in the trucks and all that sort of stuff.
And do you have a sense of the actual cost? Is it significantly lower than what this says the volunteers are worth?
That's a very good question. I am not sure, but I could try to figure that out. My guess would be that it is less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have the 24-25 report coming up.
Yes.
So maybe you can take a cut at that.
We'll see if I can look
That'd
into
be
that.
great. Thank you.
So I mentioned about our pesticide use. We only use pesticides that have been approved by the Board of Directors under our IPM program. These include fungicide, herbicides, insecticides, rodenticides, and viricides. One note on here, you'll see rodenticides is listed on here. Since 2014, we have never authorized the use of rodenticide, so it has always been zero. In most cases, we are able to take care of it with the simple snap traps, good cleanliness in a house, and of course, some people have cats. The fungicide that you see there, Reliant, that is used to basically pre-treat for sudden oak death. It's only really used sparingly on specimen oaks. It is not a landscape level use. It's not something that we want to spray over, entire areas or anything like that. And so it is very, very used at this point. Some of our successes, we've treated across all 27 preserves. We've worked within each one of them, working on the invasive species. We've expanded our manual and volunteer-based management. Broom has been reduced to maintenance levels in a lot of key areas, especially in Bear Creek redwoods. And then early detection contains new infestation. So when we go out to a site and we see a new infestation, if we can catch it early, that is our greatest success. Because if we can stop it from spreading, that's going to save us the long-term fight. And in many areas, we're still seeing the continued increase in native coverage in many of these areas. Some of the difficulties. We're in the mountain range, so we have some steep terrain and really limited access in a lot of these areas. There is sometimes narrow seasonal treatment windows. For instance, goat grass. This is one of the annual grasses that we deal with. From the time that you can identify that it is a goat grass and to when you need to treat it is about 7 days. So when goat grass season is upon us, we are going out to the site on a regular basis, try to identify it, and as soon as we can identify it, we're calling up our contractors and saying, hey, I need you out here now. So it's a very, very narrow seasonal treatment window. Same thing with yellow star thistle. Yellow star thistle, when we are doing mowing of yellow star thistle, which is a really nice technique to use on, it has a very narrow window, about 1 week around the summer solstice. And then we have to go out 3 weeks after that and do it again. Not that big of a deal, except for how many acres of yellow star do we have and how much brushing would we have to do in that 1 week. So just keep in mind that it doesn't scale very nicely sometimes for that type of treatment. With that, I'm going to transfer over to our wildland fire resiliency unless there's any questions about IPM.
Did the weevils work?
So the weevils are a very interesting biocontrol. There's 6 different biocontrols for yellow star thistle, 3 weevils and 3 flies. And we released them at multiple sites. And back in 2016, we went out and resurveyed where we did release. And we also surveyed where we didn't release because we wanted to see what is the baseline condition out there. We found them at every single site. They are not a magic bullet. They help to suppress the weeds, but they will never get rid of the weeds. And so we do see a suppression of it, but we'll never, without additional management, we'll never get there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Director Kishimoto.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around kind of the big trends, and obviously there's been a huge shift between 2014 and now, right?
Yep.
It's, from kind of a lot of spraying to mostly hand pull, and all that early detection is really wonderful and such. But and you said that I guess your report said that you're trying to transition to more of a recovery of ecosystem rather than any one species. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah. So we are doing the 10-year review right now of the IPM program. We'll be bringing that to the board here shortly to go over sort of the lessons learned over the past 10 years. And what we're hoping to do is, with the review of our resource management policies, and the real focus that was led by the board with those resource management policies is about a holistic review about our sites. And so that's where we're starting to tend towards, is to look at a site at a holistic review at a higher level, at the biodiversity level, and not site-specific, or I should say species-specific.
I see, okay. Oh, so the IPM review is still coming up.
It
I thought that was tonight. But
So this is the IPM review just for the year, the annual report that we do, but the 10-year review is coming up.
10-year review, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, I also found it interesting, you said, we have that 3,300, is it just biological species?
3,600, that
Or
is a plant species.
Plant species,
That's
okay.
just plants.
I see,
Yeah.
okay. And do we, and maybe you're going to talk about it in the 10-year review, but do we try to keep do a bio survey just to see if there's any trend there?
Yeah, so under the IPM program, one of the requirements is that we do biological surveys every 5 years. That includes doing a complete species list at the site.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Dr. Riffle.
Two questions. What about our neighbors? And because unfortunately weeds don't stop at our borders. And I remember we had quite a program going on in Thornwood, was it, where we were paying and helping. We would help subsidize.
Yeah, that's the Slender Faults Brome program.
Right. But I was just wondering, in general, how do we manage kind of the neighbor issue?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things is that we can't do this alone. Like you said, weeds, they didn't get my memo, or at least they didn't read it. And so we work in partnership with a lot of folks, including the weed management areas. These are special districts set up by the ag commissioners of each one or most of the different counties. So there is a weed management area for San Mateo County and one for Santa Clara County as well, in which the landowners come together and we sort of talk about what are the common problems that we have and some common solutions. So that way, we're all kind of on the same page. It's also a great place to hear about new infestation. So we'll get word about, there's a new camel meal out there that we should be looked out for because it's been found on somebody's land. And so then we can start to look for that. And we get a lot of people asking us about, what's going on in our lands. We made an early detection rapid response discovery of a certain geranium that was not found anywhere else in San Mateo County, which we had both staff and volunteers jump on right away. And then we had the weed management areas. We talked to them about it. And so, alerting them, hey, there is a chance that this might show up on your property since it was on our property.
Okay. And my other question, Cody, we spend a lot of time about killing and pulling and getting rid of, but we don't talk a lot about, well, what are we replacing it with? I mean, as far as getting the natives back in. And is our general approach, if we can get rid of the invasives, that allows the natives come back, or do we do a lot of, replanting or seed planting or whatever?
Excellent question. So what you're describing here is passive versus active restoration.
Yes.
In the IPM program, for the most part, it is very passive restoration. So we're going in and taking out the worst of the worst and seeing how it responds and seeing if it's good enough.
Right.
In some instances in which we have to take out a whole bunch of a certain species and now we have bare ground, now we're coming in and we're going to seed that area. And so we'll work with our restoration biologists to determine what plants that are should be going into that area, and we'll order those ahead of time. Usually we do it by seed, not by plants. We don't like to grow out plants because of pathogen concerns. So we really limit our plantings because of the pathogen concerns to when we are sort of mandated to do it or where logically we're not going to get the results that we were hoping for just by seeding an area. But it's a case-by-case basis. And that's under the miscellaneous projects as well. We'll get to that. We'll talk about some of the restoration work that we do.
Yes, I have a related question, and it keeps going through my mind. I remember listening to a researcher from UC Berkeley who was working with tribes to analyze soil to understand what might have been many, many, many years ago, on the land in terms of that active restoration kind of component. Is that something that we're considering or have done at all?
We've talked about it, and so that type of analysis can tell us what happened in the past. And it's very broad, that type of analysis. It will say this was most likely a grassland. This was most likely a forest. That's usually as broad as you can get, or as detailed as you can get. And it can tell us some interesting information about the historic nature, but you have to remember we have a bunch of new sort of pressures on our lands that weren't there during those times. That's being climate change. That could be the invasion of invasive species that has changed soils chemistry, but it is also fire suppression. And so all these things we take into account. So I wouldn't say it's completely discounted. It's something that's nice to know that this area used to be forested or this area used to be a grassland. But we have to sort of be more forward-thinking about what are the conditions turning into and where are we going to get the greatest success.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Okay, other questions?
Okay. Moving on to our wildland fire resiliency program. Here are some of the major projects that we undertook in the first 2 years. There was many more than just this, but these are some of the bigger projects that we had. Saratoga Gap at Foothills and Los Trancos and Montebello and at Thornwood. In addition to beyond just these, we also, of course, do all of our defensible space throughout around all of Midpen's facilities. And then we also make sure we maintain our roads and our trails for fire access. You'll see coming up here, sure, I'll just move on here. So in 2021, at our Skyline field office, so that's up on the ridgetop, we completed about 42 acres, and down at our foothills, about 9 acres in 2021. And then you'll see this major bump, and that is our fire resiliency program that was approved by the board in 2022. So you can see that we definitely increased our acreage quite significantly, and it's still going up. And one of the big contributors to that is our partnership, again, just like weeds, fire knows no boundaries, our partnership with the Los Gatos Collaborative, along with the Fire Safe, with San Mateo Fire Safe and other partners, completing a lot of fuels work, including the RCD at La Honda, where there was a shaded fuel break that was put in surrounding the town of La Honda. So I'm going to move into the miscellaneous projects unless you have any questions about the fire program. So the miscellaneous projects, these are additional projects that have some sort of vegetation management component to it. You'll see that we have quite a number of mitigation projects and then what we call risk abatement. The mitigation projects, these typically are where we're doing a lot more planting and seeding. So the vast majority of these are connected to some sort of public access, in which then that we have to mitigate for those impacts for public access. The nice thing is part of our mission is to provide ecologically sensitive to provide ecological education and recreation, and so. Though we have a number of mitigation projects, we've done our due diligence on reducing the amount of mitigation that is actually required. So each one of these projects, though required a mitigation for it, it's much smaller in nature as compared to what it could have been if we just decided to just do whatever we wanted to do and didn't take into account what the species are there and what the impacts are. So we do have a number of mitigation projects listed here. The vast majority are doing quite well in meeting what we call permit conditions. Most of these projects stay on this list for about 10 years. It could be anywhere from 5 up to 15 years. But for the most part, it's about 10 years. And they are slowly coming off as new ones are getting added on. Now, risk abatement is a little bit different in that this is when we're either installing infrastructure or we're demolishing infrastructure. And the idea here is that we're treating weeds, for the most part, not in an effort to kill the weed, but actually to make sure that we're not spreading the weed from our construction activity. So construction activity is considered the greatest threat to invasion. It's bringing in the heavy equipment, any materials we're bringing in, any soils that might be being brought in. And so we're trying to reduce that risk of invasive species and or pathogens coming in. And so we'll go into a site and we will do a removal, not, again, to kill the plants necessarily, but to make sure that the equipment doesn't come in and spread those weeds further around. And with that, I will open it up to any additional questions.
All right, Director Gleason.
Can you just flip back to that? Yeah. So I'm a little bit confused here. I'm looking at Hendry's Creek and then Mount Umunum Trail Bridges. Hendry's Creek seems like sort of a pure restoration project, and then Mount Umunum Trail Bridges sounds like a more pure recreation project. I'm trying to understand exactly what puts these projects on this list. Are they the sites where the mitigation is taking place, or they're the sites that
No, these are all sites that
require-
are actual mitigation sites. So Henry's Creek is actually a mitigation site. It was originally a mitigation site through, at the time it was Santa Clara Valley Water, now known as just Valley Water. And they had to clean up the site for mitigation for one of their projects, and part of that mitigation was actually to turn the land over to us, in which we then continue to make sure that the area is maintained.
Okay, and then the Mount Umunum Trail Bridges.
Some trees had to be removed for those bridges, and so we had to mitigate against the tree removal, and it was also spanning a jurisdictional water area.
And then the mitigation involved what? There?
So the mitigation for that was planting of trees. This is actually one of the sites, unfortunately, that we're having a little trouble with. All the others are meeting success criteria, but we're working with CDFW right now regarding that project. But it's a site in which we did tree impacts, and so we had to plant trees.
And that mitigation is in the same area? Or
It's in the same basic general area. We could not do it exactly on site. There actually wasn't room for it, and that's part of the reason why we're having a little bit of trouble. It's also at a site in which it's very hard to maintain. It's really hard and very expensive to get crews out to that site to maintain it. And if you can imagine, if you have to water plants, how far you have to walk with water, and water's not light.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Director Sear.
I had a question, and I'm just curious, and I can't recall the name of the reserve right offhand, but the one where we have an old folks' home right near the trail.
Windy Hill, I think you have Sequoia.
Yeah. Did there any work to extend the zone limiting potential fire around that?
So that's the site that I was talking about, in which we had an early detection of geranium that came up. That's because we actually did fire work in that general area, and we believe that the fire work that the contractors brought in that geranium on their equipment. So we have expanded that area because it is what we call a shelter-in-place facility. During a fire event, there's no way to get them out, so the best thing is to make sure that they are safe where they're at. So we have expanded that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? More questions for Cody? Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
All right, very good. Well, Cody, that was a whirlwind of interesting information. Thank you.
Yes.
And I think we're finished, right?
Unfortunately, yes, with this, but not with me.
Okay, well, moving right along.
Okay.
We will move on to 2.
That was really good work. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Item number 7. Take it away, Cody.
All right. So this is the award of contract for the Conservation Grazing Master Weed. The general manager's recommendation is to approve a contract with Ecological Concerns for 1 year at $89,468, and then to authorize up to 3 one-year extensions if success criteria are achieved. So that's an additional $296,150 for a total not to exceed amount of $385,618 over 4 years. In addition, we're asking for a separate consumables allowance of $77,124, in which the allowance would be capped at 20% in any one year. So invasive species treatment in San Mateo County supports our conservation grazing objectives and overall ecological health, right? Our conservation grazing is a tool to manage for biodiversity, and we also have weeds that are in that area. So this work aligns with our IPM program using the board-approved methods that I talked about at the last board item. So the base term is 1 year, and then we can extend for 3 additional years, so a total of 4 years. The district would issue an annual work authorization for that 1 year, and then we would increase their rate for up to 5%, but it's actually tied to the employment cost index. And so the idea is that we're not expanding scope, but we're making sure that it's keeping up with inflation. The consumables is reimbursed at actual with invoices under a separate allowance, and that is just to help us control costs. The RFP was issued via BidNet, which is the online service provider for all of our requests for bids. The notice was posted, and we had a mandatory site bid walk as well. In the end, we received 2 bids, and ecological concerns was deemed the lowest responsible and responsive bidder for that. The bid comparison, ecological concerns came in at $89,467.96, and Confluence Restoration, another restoration firm, came in at $132,660. We currently have those we have those funds in our budget currently. This is not a Measure AA project, and again, the CEQA for this is the IPM program. And then just finally, if approved, we'll enter into contract and hopefully begin treatment of weeds this month. And then in a year, we'll evaluate how the contractor did to determine if we extend or not.
All right, questions for Cody?
I have a question.
Director McKinnon.
Is this just district-wide? Is this first response?
So this
stuff?
is not district-wide. This is just for the conservation grazing areas. So it's
Conservation
about
grazing.
10,000 acres or so.
Sorry, I missed that.
We will be coming back to the board later in this year for a master weed contract for the rest of the district. But we wanted a really focused one on conservation grazing since we've done so much work in terms of the brush management. And so we just want to make sure that the area is taken care of from any secondary weeds that might come in, as described by Matthew Shapiro from the last board meeting.
So you kind of know where the worst weeds are?
Yeah.
9,000 acres?
Yes.
Okay. That's great.
Other questions? Director Riffle.
Two questions. Kind of follow up to Director McNiven. I noticed on bottom of page 1, top of page 2 is the proposed contract scope basically applies to all of our grazing units except Cloverdale and Indigo. How are those two managed?
Yeah, so we decided that we were going to remove those 2 from this contract. And the reason for that is because they have such special status species at those locations, it takes a lot more work. And the dollar amount is actually under the general manager's authority. And so that's how we're moving forward with those 2 areas. We also want to see how the areas respond. And then we're going to go, so those are only 1-year contracts to sort of get some lessons learned as we do the work there. And then we're hoping to do a 4-year contract for each one of those sites that would be brought back to the board for authorization.
I see. Okay, thanks. And then my follow-up question is, how do we work with our grazing tenants when we come up with what we're going to do with particular grazing land that they might be working with?
Yeah, so another excellent question. The vegetation staff, we consider our grazing tenants partners in how we do this work. They are really assisting us a lot with the biodiversity, with the way they run their cattle. And so we do take into consideration the Cal-IPSI, the California Invasive Plant Council considerations. We also look at when we do our botanicals. I talked about how every 5 years we have to go back into a site to do an assessment. And we do that assessment. And then we also talk with our ranchers and ask them, what issues are you having right now, and how can we best leverage both these contracts and their time for this. So it is taken into consideration about what their concerns are. The IPM program does have a way that we prioritize the way we do our work, and so we run it through that program. One of those things is taking into consideration what the tenants want.
Director Gleason.
Yeah, I've been out to La Honda Creek on the new trails a number of times recently and noticed both the ecological concerns folks out there and also that some of the disturbance around the new trails has encouraged a lot of thistle growth.
Yep.
I'm not sure milk thistle or Italian thistle. Is that part of what they'll work on?
That is exactly what they'll be working on. Yes.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and our new tenants in La Honda, they actually offered and received a grant to do additional work on these around the trails as well. So it's a great partnership.
Thank you.
Other questions for Cody? All right, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay. Comments or a motion?
I can make a motion, unless somebody has a comment.
You have comments?
It's all pretty self-explanatory.
All right, go
I'll
ahead.
second that.
All right, we have a motion by Director McNiven and a second by Director Kishimoto for the General Manager's recommendations 1 through 3. A roll call, please.
Director McNiven,
Yes.
Director Kishimoto,
Yes.
President Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Riffle,
Yes.
Director Sear,
Yes.
Director Gleason.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
All
Thank
right,
you very much.
Thank you for doing double duty tonight, Cody. Great on both counts.
I've got something to show you at the end.
Okay, we'll move now to our final item of business, and that is a Cloverdale Interim Public Access Plan Implementation Status Update. And good evening, Jared.
All right. Great. Thank you, board members. Jared Hart, Senior Planner with the Planning Department. This item is to provide a status update on implementation of the Cloverdale Interim Public Access Plan at Cloverdale Ranch Open Space Preserve. All right, so just status update tonight, as I was saying, so no board action is required. All right, so just some brief background. Cloverdale Ranch Open Space Preserve is approximately 6,200 acres and is located approximately 15 miles south of Half Moon Bay, just south of the town of Pescadero. Currently, Wilbur's Watch Trail, which is a 2-mile total out and back hike in the southwest quadrant of the preserve, is the only area open for public access, with the rest of the preserve being closed to the public. So Cloverdale Ranch was purchased by the district from Post in 2023, which created Cloverdale Ranch Open Space Preserve. In addition to hosting a sensitive plant and animal species, Cloverdale is part of the district's conservation grazing program, with over 4,000 acres being leased for grazing. During public outreach as part of the acquisition process, district staff received a lot of interest from the community members in being able to access the preserve. However, given the size of the preserve, as I mentioned at one of our largest preserves, the abundance of natural resources and grazing operations, long-term public access is going to require a really comprehensive planning and public engagement process. So that said, in the interim, the district has been rolling out a phased approach that was identified during acquisition approval process to allow limited access prior to development of a long-term public access plan. So the first phase involved 2 community field days back in 2023. Then in 2024, the district began offering docent-led hikes that focused on the cultural and natural history of the Cloverdale property. The next phase, which is the focus of tonight's item, is to allow limited access through a permit system that would allow for self-guided hiking in designated areas of the preserve. So the permit system would allow access for users to park their vehicles and take hikes in 2 locations in the northern area of the preserve, 1 access point off Pescadero Creek Road, and a second off of Bean Hollow Road. The first, informally called the Buchano Farms Loop, would allow permit holders to park inside of Midpen's existing gate off of Pescadero Creek Road, just east of R&R Farms. District staff have been coordinating with the grazing tenant at this location as part of the project, are proposing new fencing and reconfiguration of the existing corral to improve it for grazing operations while also facilitating parking. Permit holders would be able to hike along existing ranch roads as shown on the map here and on the previous slide, which would be approximately a 3-mile loop if one were hiking that full loop. So the second location would also allow parking within Midpen's gate off of Bean Hollow Road and feature an approximately 2.5-mile out and back hike on the existing ranch road to the Vista Point at High Hill. In both locations, staff is proposing up to a 10-car daily limit for parking. Permits would be issued free of charge and issued online consistent with our other permit parking areas the district manages. Staff is also considering issuing day permits for users who live in the Pescadero community who could walk or ride a bike to the trailhead. In both locations, use would be limited to hiking only, and Wilbur's Watch would remain open and available to users without a permit. Through the planning process for Phase 3 of the interim public access plan, staff has done outreach with the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council, San Mateo County Farm Bureau, and the grazing tenant for the Buchano Farms grazing unit. District staff has also met with the San Mateo County Planning and Public Works Departments, and staff received feedback from those engagement on parking and potential impacts to agriculture uses, provision of access for all community members, including those without a car or computer, as well as interest in group access, including school field trips, as well as use by the Pescadero High cross-country team. Staff has and will continue to take stakeholder and public input into consideration as the project is implemented and a permit system is rolled out. In terms of next steps, a coastal development permit and planned agriculture permit from San Mateo County is required for implementing permit access, so we'll be working with San Mateo County Planning staff through that process this year and anticipate opening up the 2 locations for permit access in spring or summer next year. So this concludes staff's presentation, and then I'll open it up to questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Questions for Jared? Director Riffle.
Thanks, Jared, for giving us the update this evening. Just a couple of things. You mentioned something about a day use permit. I'm happy to hear that, especially for the local residents. But how would that work?
Yeah, so we would we would issue the day use permits for people driving with their vehicles. We'd have we'd issue a permit online, free of charge, similar to how we do now for some of our other permit lots. Someone would go online, enter in their information, and then they could print out a permit and put that on their vehicle dashboard.
Sorry, I didn't ask my question very well. You referenced something about somebody local, right, could talk to a ranger and it sounded like on the spot be able to go out, and that's what I was asking.
Yes. So in terms of issuing permits to the community members that live, that was an interest that we heard when we went to the PMAC.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And as you bring up, there was an interest for people who don't have access to a computer or they don't have a smartphone.
Right.
That's one thing we've kind of gave feedback at PMAC or told the community is that yes, if someone sees a ranger could also help issue permits for users who are interested, who live in the town of Pescadero.
Oh, okay.
In terms of
okay,
for those particular users who don't have access.
Sorry, so I was confused. So we got that feedback, but it sounds like we also now have a solution. Is that
It's something
TBD?
we're looking into.
Okay.
That would be something different. I think typically now our permit system, we would issue permits for users arriving in vehicles.
Yes.
Where in this case, I think we're looking to set up something that would be a permit system that would be based on location of where a resident lives. So for those residents who live in the town of Pescadero who could just walk or ride their bike to the trailhead, there was interest in that. So that's something we're going to look into and see if we can implement something that we can implement there.
Right. Okay. My second question was about, especially on the Butano Farms, is how we're going to coordinate visitation with the cattle operation there. I know I think there was some concern about the use of that corral, and it sounds like we might have a win. In fact, could you go back to the picture?
Sure thing.
That sounds like we might have worked out something that will help both. But I was just wondering how is that going to work?
Yeah. So this corral, we've been coordinating with the grazing tenant here, and so this corral is very lightly used. It's used maybe like a couple times a year for loading and unloading cattle.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The district has installed new corrals at the top of the hill from here, kind of up the road that you see in the picture, as well as at the high hill site. So most of the cattle operation, in terms of use of corrals, is coming out of those two corrals, this one being very lightly used. So we had an opportunity there where we can do some reconfiguration of this particular corral, where we would put in new fencing to create an area that could accommodate parking, but then still leave space for all kind of season, so to speak, or all year corral for cattle that would come down the hill, potentially for water or even loading or unloading operations. The parking area would be fenced off in days in which the grazing tenant needs use of the area for potentially loading or unloading of cattle. We would not issue permits on those days.
Right, okay.
And so the corral would be 100% theirs those days, and we would have a kind of a modular system where it could just be opened up as a larger space.
Okay. And as I recall, those corrals are right off Pescadero Road, right? I mean, it's just
correct.
Right.
Right. Yes, they're right on our property line there.
Great.
And there's currently some deficiencies with the corral. I mean, you kind of see from the picture the fencing. It's an older corral, and the kind of the chute where the loading and unloading operations currently occur is not really the right width. So those are things that we're looking at improving so that those operations can be more effective, and then we can also facilitate public.
Got it. Okay.
And Jared, I just wanted to you just mentioned it right now, but note that as part of that reconfiguration, we're improving the functionality of the corral. So there is a benefit there for the tenant.
Right. Okay. Yeah. The current location of the water trough it's not in a good location for our grazing tenant now, and that's something we would be doing as well as relocating the water trough as part of this project to have better location within the corral.
I see. Okay, good. Just the final question: Do we have any cattle issues, if you will, with the high hill, with the other?
No cattle issues there. In terms of with the space there, we have. It's a little bit of a larger area.
Could you go to that picture? I think you have a
Let's
picture.
go to that.
Yeah.
There.
There we go.
Unfortunately, the picture here on the top left is kind of beyond the
Oh, really?
where the corral is. But the corral essentially is you see on the map. There's a triangle, and that's
Right.
a circle with the triangle. That's
Yep.
essentially the corral is just beyond where that symbol is located. The area is a little bit larger, and so we're this location is a little more straightforward in terms of locating parking along the existing roadway,
Right.
which is being proposed, and then allowing kind of unimpeded access for the grazing tenant to access the corral.
Okay, so that is an active pasture as well, then.
Correct.
Oh,
That
okay.
is.
Okay.
That is. Yeah. And we'd be there is part of there would be some fencing to separate any cattle
Right.
from vehicles.
Right. Okay.
Both locations.
Okay, good. And then just sorry, last question is, any idea when we are going to have, long-term public access, or is that just too far out?
Yeah, it's I don't know. So it's not. I guess all I could say is it's currently not on our 3-year CAP.
Right.
So it's at least
not for the next 3
out
years.
in terms of
Right.
initiating, and we expect that to be a
Okay.
pretty robust process.
I'm seeing staff look down. All right. Director Kishimoto.
Okay. Great. It's very exciting to have 2 new trails to go to. Let's see. So one question is, would it cause any problems with people parking on the roads to go?
Good. No. So in both locations,
There's no parking allowed?
Right. Or because parking is, we're proposing parking within Midpen's property. There wouldn't be any parking permitted on the road. There was some feedback we received in terms of safety concerns of allowing parking on the road, like on the shoulder in the county. It's in the county right away. It's actually, we don't own that. The fire station located at the corner of Bean Hollow Road and Pescadero Creek Road is going to be moving east of the town. So there was some concern that the shoulder needs to be kept open, so when there is emergency responders responding to emergency heading west through the town of Pescadero, that area should be kept open for those vehicles to get through.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, on the map, the purple line is all trail, or is the solid line on the left the road and then the trail goes up the hill?
Good question. So the purple line is both. It is the trail essentially is just using existing roads that are there now.
So is that the road you were describing earlier about where or not have parking?
Right. So parking would be located basically along adjacent to the existing ranch road at this location, and then users would hike down the existing road that you see here on the picture. Is the bottom picture is from the top of High Hill, so that's kind of the terminus of the hike. But the users would just hike along this existing road there.
Okay, thank you.
I think Director, did you finish? I don't think she finished her
oh.
comment.
Well, let's see.
Questions?
Well, I guess on the parking. Okay, so we'll just kind of keep an eye on it to make sure that there's not any roadside parking.
That's a good question, and that has come up in our outreach. And so, to get into the preserve, users would need a permit. So they through issuance of the permit, they would get a code to enter into the
Right.
gate. So you would have to have a permit to do that. So someone
there's always a
parking on
space
the
for you.
road,
Yeah.
that should hopefully at least it would eliminate people, users or potential users from parking on the shoulder and just walking in. I mean, I guess they could technically hop over like a fence
I
or
know.
something, but if it became a problem, I think we would work with the county in terms of enforcement
New signs on the
or
road.
signage.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
something I think we definitely want to be good neighbors and would monitor.
Yeah, yeah. And then it did occur to me about, you said neighbors who are able to walk or bike there, but it's a minor thing, but you probably have bike racks and such, or they would just...
That's something we're considering,
Yeah.
is to have, to include bike racks, particularly if there's, based on kind of the interest we've had.
Right,
I think that'll be something we'd consider, particularly at the Pescadero site, as that's so close to town. The one on High Hills, I mean, someone could ride a bike up there certainly, but so that's something we'll consider.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Did you have a question? Okay, Director Gleason.
If you did do that, say you have bike racks, would you distinguish in the permitting whether somebody's going with a car or bike?
Yeah.
Yes, we would distinguish that. If someone was coming by car, it'll be limited by the number of spaces, and that person would need to put in their license plate number and print that out. So for someone coming by bike, I think that's something we would distinguish if there was someone walking or biking.
Yeah, it does seem pretty attractive. It would be an easy place, I think, for a lot of local people to bike to.
Right.
So it would be nice not to constrain capacity if people are only coming in on a bike.
Right.
I'm also wondering, is this a place where we might consistently exceed capacity, demand exceeding capacity for parking?
We don't know yet. We've heard. I mean, I guess there's definitely interest, but then we've also heard that if it's just if it's a mile or just a 3-mile hike, that we may not have. Maybe there'd be some initial interest, and then it would kind of slow down. So I think that's something we'll have to monitor as we roll out the
What I
permit
can
system.
say is that if you look at Upper La Honda before we made the connection, that use was relatively very low. And that was a limited trail system with a required permit to enter and park. And so my sense is probably it'll be something similar because of the limitations. Once we open additional trail and have other facilities, and I don't know what that would look like, then I can see that the interest will go up. But for these types of limited, constrained uses, my sense it'll be similar to what we experienced up there.
I would just keep in mind that the area around Upper La Honda is a very trail-rich area. So there are many, many options there with any length of hike that you want, and many great places to go. And I'm not sure it's as much that way around Cloverdale. So it does make me wonder if there might be a sort of surge of interest.
Our Dozen that hikes have been pretty well attended. I mean, I don't know if that necessarily indicates how uptake we'll have on the permit system on a day-to-day, but those have been pretty well attended from my understanding. One other thing I'd mention about, is we consider allowing people to access it through bikes. I think I do want to mention, given the sensitivity of natural resources at the preserve, I think that that's something that staff will be considering. We want to be careful about. It's limited to hiking, and careful about having people arriving on bike and then on a bike and then maybe just continuing on. So I think that's something that we'll be considering as we dial in the permit system on what makes the most sense.
Other questions? Is there any public comment, Maria?
We did not have any.
Okay. Any comments on this? Are we actually I had several. First off, I'm really happy to see us working with the locals, with PMAC, because I think they feel a lot of ownership around this property, and so allowing them to have the ability to access, to walk in, ride their bike. A lot of farm workers in that area, particularly around the Butno Farms access point, where I think we will make good neighbors by trying to accommodate the locals to some degree, to the degree that which we can. My other thought that I wanted to share this evening, it was certainly brought up earlier with the Johnston Ranch project, and I think we're seeing it here, that it's really important for us. We know we have our obligations to communicate and with the Farm Bureau, but what's most important is that relationship we have with our ranchers, the actual farmer or rancher. They have often very different perspectives than the Farm Bureau does. So this is a perfect example where Reno Dinelli, he likes what we're doing. We didn't really hear that so much from the Farm Bureau. So it's just important that we walk both paths, but staying in contact really with our grazing tenants is super important, which we're doing, and I think that's really important. So, yes, thank you. Thank you. I have nothing more. Please.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this open, particularly the Butno Farms part, even just in permit access mode. And I do feel like it's one of these places that is sort of close to where people are living. And my guess would be that it'll have sort of a special attraction because of that. Also, when we visited up there, I know many people have been looking down at the area where that loop would be and thinking, I would love to go out there and hike. So I think it will be really nice to open up that extra area.
Good. Thank you so much for this update. It's encouraging. Nice to see.
Thank you.
Movement on this. Yes, Susanna.
Susanna Chan, Assistant General Manager. There's an earlier question about when we can actually get to the evaluation of permanent opening the preserve for public access. The project is actually on our 20-year Measure AA program planned, and just took us a little bit of time because the internet connection is not really good here, and so we are able to look at our plan. Right now, on our 20-year plan, we will be starting to work on the planning of the permanently open the public access to the public in 2030, fiscal year 2030. That's when we start the planning process. But it's going to take us a little bit of time to get to actually opening the preserve for public access. It'll be like 8 to 9 years. So that's our current plan.
Good. Thank you for that. All right, we will move now to informational reports. Oh, wait, what?
Didn't do a motion.
No motion.
No, we don't.
It's just action. Okay.
Yes, no action required on that one. So committee reports. Do we have any committee meetings?
We did have an ABC meeting yesterday.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yes. And who's going to make a report on the ABC?
Karen is the.
Oh, she's the chair.
She's the new chair. Yes.
Go ahead. Yes.
So Margaret, Karen, and I are on the ABC, and we talked yesterday about the Measure AA reallocation. So this is, we do this up to once a year, and this is taking money that we did not spend on item number 9 and item number 10, which is Russian Ridge and Alpine Road, and then reallocating that money to number 21, which is Bear Creek Redwoods. We approved this reallocation, the committee did. It will now go to the Bond Oversight Committee for their opinion, and then it will come to the full board for their consideration. So.
Great, thank you. Anything else to add? Good. Any other committee reports?
No.
Okay, how about staff?
Just one quick one. Last Friday, we held our career fair, conservation career fair, and in the Los Altos Community Center. And it was an idea that I had pitched over to our human resources staff, thinking maybe we can assemble something that might attract 100 people or so. And we had 1,200 registrations. We were tracking them all as you were coming in, and we can at least confirm that we definitely had over 700 people attend. Probably more because some people were streaming in without checking in at the registration table. But it was an incredible turnout. I want to commend our HR department who took the lead, and then all the other staff who were involved. We brought in many partners. I think we had about 30 partners from public agencies, nonprofits, consulting firms, just everyone and that's involved in conservation here in the Bay Area. And it was an idea because we're such an incredible hub here in the Bay Area, but there was never been a centralized place to showcase that. And so, it was an incredible success. And I think on Friday you'll be seeing a couple of fabulous articles that came out in the local papers, thanks to Eleanor Robb, who pitched those ideas, those stories out. So we had great press as well.
Thank you, Anna. And Brian.
Assistant General Manager, I'll give my normal Bear Creek Stables update. Just a really big milestone for me. We sent the finished packet of the agreement to the Friends, including all the elements that the board requested. So we were able to negotiate all those changes, and they're in the agreement now. So it's been sent to them for signature. As I mentioned previously, we'll wait until we get the insurance certificates, and then we'll sign it on our side. And we still anticipate April 1st, but the insurance, if we don't get it, that could delay the transfer of the operation. But everything's going well.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Other staff reports. Okay, we will move now then to director reports, and I will start with Director McNiven.
Quiet week.
Quiet week.
Quiet 2 weeks.
All right.
Nothing to report.
Director Kishimoto.
Let's see. Well, people know the Stevens Creek Watershed Summit is coming up March 26th. And so, and I think, Jared just left, but Jared is going to be one of our speakers, I guess, talking about the upper watershed. So that's that, and it'll be a great day. So I hope to see many of you there. And then this month is Women's History Month. So maybe hats off to all the women here, and the men, of course. But, and I don't know how that happened, but I guess I am the awardee for a. Let's see, what do they call it? Geraldine Steinberg Justice in Action Award, I guess, which is So I'm receiving an award, and it caused me to look into Geraldine Steinberg, and she was the first elected woman to the supervisors, a board of supervisors in Santa Clara County. And it was kind of interesting because it turns out that the reason she became interested in land use is Lehigh. That she lived in Los Altos Hills, kind of overlooking, and she said, "Oh, why is that mountain moving?" So that's, and then she went on to join the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors and many other distinguished positions. She was also responsible for the county acquiring quite a bit of its share of Rancho San Antonio. So she said it, and every time she went on 280 and she went by, she said, "Oh, I helped contribute to that."
Nice.
So, anyways, yeah. So
Congratulations.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Let us know when.
Director Riffle.
Just a
Oh,
couple
yes,
things.
I
First
thank
is I want to shout out to the staff, Laguna Stefano, and most of the people in here about the contributions you all made to the board retreat that we had, the planning retreat. I thought that was a really good discussion. Really appreciate all the work that goes into those. And then speaking of work, thank you to staff for getting us over here tonight. Really appreciate all the extra work that it takes. And so I guess a question, and I'm not sure to look, maybe Susanna, when we build our new coastal field office here, will we be able to have these kind of meetings there? Is that? Okay. Great. Good. Okay. Thanks.
Director Sear.
Nothing extra.
Director Gleason.
I think the only thing is that we had a Santa Clara Special Districts Association meeting where I represented Midpen and Director Kishimoto represented LAFCO as well. So that's it.
Okay, so a couple things. I showed up at the Conservation Fair on Friday at 2 o'clock. Took me 20 minutes to find a parking place. I walked in, and there were like 40 people in line on this one line. So I'm like, I'm going to walk around the building. There were another 40 people trying to get in the other. It was the most incredible gathering. It was so inspiring. These young people all dressed up with their portfolios and hustling, trying to get in and talk to somebody. And it was just it was amazing. Anna, you just hit that so perfectly. It was something that was really needed, and it was incredible. So, hats off. That was really quite something. On a different note, I did meet with a gentleman from the community by the name of John Romero, a long-term equestrian, who has been accessing Miramontes Ridge somewhat illegally, kind of doing a little bit of trail building, but he's had a long history of riding in there, and Anna and Brian really helped him figure out how he could continue to have a little bit of help to continue his riding in there for another couple of years until we can formalize some trails, and so that was really I was really appreciative that we could make that work for him. So thank you. And I just want to thank you all for coming over here tonight. It's always a pleasure to have everybody come to the coastside, and I really appreciate the hard work for Maria and it's just hard to come over and set this all up. So
We just want to thank you for the gorgeous weather.
Oh, my pleasure.
I dressed for the coast. I had
All
to
right.
take it all off.
Good. Very good. Well, thank you all. Meeting's adjourned.
Hey, Cody.